right, y'all. Thanks for coming back. Join me on the business. This is Jay Herb. I got a real special guest today. Of course, we are the show and segment that bridges the gap between the music and the business side of the music. You feel me? So today we have Mayzella House. She operates U3 Radio. It's a great, great up and coming station popping. She's well plugged in, and I was really excited to have her on the show today. So if you want to introduce yourself, tell them your background. The mic is yours.
I am Mayzella House, aka DJ Baby Blue Diamond. Like you said, I do have U3 Radio. I have another station called Purple World Radio for chopped and screwed music. I am a DJ, and I also do graphics on the side too. So I know a lot about the in and out of the music.
Oh yeah, and that's I know you were really knowledgeable. So like I said, I'm glad to have you on the show to be able to kind of enlighten our viewers. So you, like I said, you're obviously plugged into the scene. You're out there in Texas doing your thing. Do you have any? Did you ever have any aspirations or like thoughts to be an artist yourself at one time?
No.
No. Okay.
No, not really. I have wrote a couple stuff, and I do like to write for other people, but not for myself. I'm very shy, which is crazy because I do video, right? How do you shy do video? But I love being behind scenes because this is new to me, doing interviews face to face, because I used to doing interviews through the phone, via phone, so I don't have to see the person face to face. So I can make crazy faces. I can do whatever when I'm talking, and no one can see me. If I mess up, they can't say, "Oh, you messed up," because it's you. Because they don't see your face. So I love being behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you, what made you start a podcast just highlighting independent artists? Because there was a gap for a long time, and I think right now, like a lot of other people are kind of doing it, but not at the level that you're doing it. But what made you get in? What made you say, okay, there's a need out there for people to put independent artists on and play their music and whatnot. What was up with that?
Well, I used to like watching VH1 Behind the Music, when that came on, and I was watching, it was actually Ludacris' story, and I thought about not just Ludacris' story, Ludacris, Neo, and a lot of other artists, and I noticed how in order for them to make it into the industry, they either did like an industry talent show, they worked at the radio station, or they kind of knew somebody who knew somebody, and a lot of underground artists or indie artists don't have that opportunity to know somebody that knows somebody, or that can say, oh, I did an industry talent show, and some A&Rs from Def Jam was there. They don't have that opportunity, or they're fortunate to be that, to be that lucky. So I'm like, we need an outlet to showcase the artists who don't have the opportunity to be around someone big to get their music out there. And I just have no background in radio. I didn't know what I was doing. I just went for it, jumped in, did it.
Yeah. So how did you build your audience? I mean, how long, I guess I should ask you, how long have you had the show?
I started in about 2015. That's just when I started. It was August 2015. I remember I had a local artist here help me out because he was my first guest, and it bombed. Of course, your first show is not going to go the way you thought it was. It was 30 minutes, and I thought 30 minutes would be a long time to do everything I wanted to do. But no, it's not. 30 minutes go by like that. It was over before I knew it. And so I started there, and then I slowly got better. And most of the artists I met some of the artists I met through gaming, because some artists game. So that's how I actually built my fan base, is through gaming. A lot of gamers out there gaming, and they started tuning in, and they saw what I was doing. They're like, hey, I'm an artist too. And that's when I slowly started building my fan base like that. And then one of my co-hosts I had was big, not really big, but knew a lot of local artists in my home state, because like I said, when I started my radio station, it's not like I was out there on the local scene before I did it. No, I just jumped in. I didn't know anyone on the local scene like that. I couldn't tell you this little so from my hometown, none of that. I didn't know anybody, but I knew I wanted to highlight them, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, that is. So how did you, say you said you wasn't like plugged in or nothing like that. So
I wasn't. My co-host helped me become plugged in. He knew some of the local artists down here, and then after he decided to go somewhere else, and I had two other co-hosts that helped me get plugged in, and then I started to I slowly started to get on the local scene, which I really did not want to. I wanted to stay behind the scene. I wanted people to be like, who is this U3 mysterious? And I was happy for the longest, because when people found out, oh, U3, they get so excited. They get shocked. They're like, oh, it's a female, it's you. I didn't know. I wanted to stay behind the scenes. Like I was comfortable. But I told myself, in order for me to build my fan base, I had to get out there. And then also I was in this group called the Dynasty Network, where they bring people from all backgrounds that do different type of stuff. Like I say, gaming, producers, beat maker, radio station DJs. We come together and we form this group where we support each other, we promote each other. And being in that group helped me branch out to meet other indie and underground artists from other states.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff. So what common, I see so many interviews of artists who don't know how to interview. It's one thing, like, you like, oh, as an artist, well, I've been there, right? I've been there, like, you come on somebody's show, you be like, oh, I'm ready for whatever they throw at me. And then they get on there and they start, like, just not answering the questions, or it's like a lot of maybe over talking, or maybe just not, you just forget. I just attribute it to people just getting on there and just they just have a brain fog or something, right? But so I just want to know, what common traits have you noticed when you interview people that are successful artists? What are there? Is that like a common theme when you
I noticed that, well, you get I always get the three different kind of artists. You have the ones that are just starting off in the industry, and those are the ones that they feel like they have to have an interview, even though they really don't need it yet, because they haven't really built nothing to have an interview. Yes, we could talk about the new song you just released, but if you just started your music career because quarantine hit, it's like, I can't ask you, oh, what made you want to start music? Oh, quarantine. Oh, then that's the end of the question. Then we have nothing to talk about, And then you have the ones who been in the game for a minute, but it hasn't reached that success yet. So those are the ones that can really give you the story. Okay, this is how I got started. This is why I do it. And and give you that conversation feel type interview. And then you have the ones that are like Hollywood, like you said, has been up there. And those are the ones that really don't answer your questions or want to talk or try to redirect the question to something else, whether you ask how long you've been doing music, or you can ask them, what made you start doing music? Well, back in the day, my homie said I had the talent. So I was like, let me do it. Instead of the one saying, well, I started doing poetry and my teacher motivated me to do this and this and this and got me into music. So you have those different type of artists. And then sometimes if I really know the artist, or if I do my research, sometimes I will ask questions that sometimes will spark, like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Or for instance, someone in my hometown, I asked, why do people feel like you act Hollywood? And and I didn't know how he was going to take that question, because you could take that question so many ways coming as an artist. But he was actually happy. He was like, I'm happy you asked me that question, because I want to clear that up. So you got a chance to clear that up. So you get different types of artists. You never know what you might get.
I'm sure. So, like, if you had to give artists tips before they do an interview, because to me, I feel like if this is my first time seeing you as an artist, they might make or break my perception of you, right? So if I see you and I'm like, this person really doesn't bring anything of interest to, because nowadays with social media, we want to know, fans, we want to know behind the scenes. We want to know what your motivation is. We want to know what your creative process is. We want to know all that type of stuff, right? Exactly. So, and that's what sells the artist story. Like, a lot of artists don't even get me started. A lot of artists don't open up enough to be who they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I'm a nerd. I just, what I'm saying, if that's what you're into, you into comics, speak on it. If you are into, who knows, you might be into flying kites, you know what I mean? Exactly. But be yourself though. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like if you be yourself, people can dig. There's somebody out there who digs your story and they be like, okay, I can relate to this person. Let me go check out the music. It's not the other way around. A lot of people try to sell the music to you without telling who they are. And people don't give a damn about that, right? So if you had to give an interview tip, like tips for artists, what would you like generally just say? What should an artist like? What should an artist? I guess what should they address during the interview? If you have to give tips, how to interview.
I always say, if you new to being interviewed, this is your first interview ever. Because I've had a couple artists saying I'm their first interview ever and they're nervous. Feel free to ask me what questions I'm gonna ask, because I am willing to email that to you so you can be prepared. Because I know there's some younger artists. Managers will ask me that too. Can you email me the questions so they can be prepared? I don't mind doing that.
That's a good tip.
Now, sometimes I don't necessarily go in order, depending on how a conversation flows, and I might add a question, but it's never going to be nothing too off. Like if our conversation is flowing good and I ask you, oh, how'd you come up with the concept for your album? You said, because I was in the hood doing this, driving around in my Lolo. Oh, you like Lolos. Tell me a little more about your, depending on how the conversation goes. But I like to give rundowns of my interview, of my questions. I don't mind doing that. I don't like to ask that hard, tough question. I'm not in the business to try to make you look bad. Some podcasts are that type. Oh, I saw you sleeping with that girl and you had a wife. That's not me. I'm not into that. Before I start my interviews, I love asking people, is there anything you don't want me to talk about? Because sometimes people say, don't bring up the beef I had with so. Even if I knew about it, if I didn't know about it, I respect that. I won't bring it up if you don't want to talk about it. If there's legal issues going on and you don't want to talk about it, I respect that. I'm not going to bash you. I don't want to make you look bad. I don't like to edit my interviews and, clip out stuff and make memes and stuff. Because, the internet would do that to you. And I don't want to make you a meme before you make that success. So, no. And I like to, and one thing I always tell artists, I do my research. So have a good bio is another thing before you do your interviews. Because I know a lot of these young artists, they don't have a bio. And a bio helps a lot, because I don't want to be that interviewer too that starts out with the same basic questions like, oh, where you from and all that. If I have your bio, I can just say, instead of asking where you from, I can say, oh, being from Michigan, how do you get your musical influence? Instead of just asking where you from, I can flip the question another way. So having a decent bio is very good. Just where you from, how you get started, how old you are, and because that's just the basics. That bio is the basis to a lot of stuff.
It is. I always tell people
don't have that.
Yeah, I still tell people it's like your resume or your business card, right?
It is.
So that's the first one. If you can see that and I can kind of read and catch up on you, then it makes the interview go a lot smoother, right?
A good bio too, not just any kind of bio. Because I've seen bios where it's like, my name is Lil so and so. I'm 24 from Michigan, and you already know. Check me out. That's just be the bio, and I'm like, I don't know. What made you get started? What albums do you have out? What singles do you have out?
And I like that too. I like that. I see, I've seen your show, obviously, and obviously, I mean, disclaimer, I've been on the show, but you know what I mean. But I seen that you take your time to ask certain questions. You're not just asking, oh, well, what are your influences and like the typical stuff. And so I see you take pride in that.
I take the time a week to listen to your music, ask you, why'd you say this line? Why'd you put that line in it? Because some people don't be prepared for that. They're like, oh, wait, you heard that line? You heard me say that? I'm like, I'm not just gonna, why would I ask for your bio and not read it? Why would I ask you to send music and not listen to it? Then I'm not doing my job. Because I want the interviewer to feel comfortable, like I'm doing my job. Because if I keep asking the same old questions, they're gonna be like, well, I did this interview before, same old boring questions. What am I gonna get out of your station that I can't get from the next station? You know?
Yeah, I know. I really feel like that. Whatever you do, you got to bring value to the situation, right? Now, have you ever felt like you asked a question that just crossed the line accidentally, have you ever had because you said you don't edit your videos, right? So have you ever had a conflict?
I don't, but I don't think I've ever done a question that crossed the line, but I have felt questions that I felt like people wasn't going to answer. For instance, there's this local group down here who kind of made some noise. They were supposed to have a record deal. It didn't fall through because the manager they had at the time, they were young in high school. And I was scared to ask questions about that because I didn't know, because it was a single member. It wasn't a group at the time. It was because they had broken off. And I didn't think they wanted to talk about that because, people know about it, but they kind of keep it hush. So I was kind of iffy because I asked them, can I ask you anything? They said, yeah, ask me anything. And I asked about the deal and all that. And I thought they wasn't going to answer that. I thought they were like, no, we don't talk about that legal. But they actually went into details about it. So I was just like, okay. And that's when I was first starting off. I was like, oh, no, this is going to be the interview. People going to talk about me.
Right, because that's the information you don't hear every day. People don't talk about their deals.
They don't.
They don't talk about the deals. I mean, that's really low key. That's really like
They really
inside
don't. People thought
information.
that group was going to be the one to actually, put San Antonio out there like Houston is out there. They
Mm,
thought that was going to be the one. This song was banging on all the stations. It was
mm,
big, and they thought that was going to be it. But being in high school, you're young,
yeah,
your manager do whatever they do.
yeah. That's, you know
So,
what, people don't realize that it can fall apart. Like you can have a tight song, you can have everything, but if you got a weak link, if your managers, or anything, like anything, right? It can just all
yeah.
fall apart just like that. So I've been a part of groups myself, and that's a long story, but it just takes one thing for it to fall apart. So, I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to ask because I know you got the U3 thing popping off. You say you do illustrations, but like as far as the podcast and radio thing goes, it's like the market is like really getting saturated now. Have you noticed that? Everybody's
It
starting
is.
a
Everybody wants to start a
podcast,
podcast.
right? What do you feel about that? Like, what do you think about the market now? Like, you've been doing it for 6 years, so you got time, man. You're like an OG, triple OG with this. You feel me?
I love that people started their podcast because they can get their voices out there, and I love that people are being unique with it. It's not the same old, same old. Because before, podcasts used to be the same old, like what I'm doing now, playing music,
Mm-hmm.
talking to artists. But now you can. I follow a podcast on Spotify that talks about Black girl magic and Black people going to therapy. There's
Mm-hmm.
podcasts that talk about, being positive. There's podcasts that can help you through whatever. Like I'm on a podcast now that's a sex podcast, which is out my comfort zone, but
Oh man, okay.
so it's not my podcast, but I'm one of the hosts on it. So
Sure, it's
there's
not
podcasts
sure.
for everybody. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Anything that you want, there's a podcast for. And then not only that, there's podcasts for knowledge. So
Mm,
instead of just going to YouTube all the time to look up something to Google, you can listen to a podcast on your way to work and figure
mm,
out how to make 5K.
mm, yeah, yeah,
I
no,
like
I get
that
that.
people are doing the podcast, but it can be oversaturated if you don't know how to do it right and if you're not consistent. I
Right.
noticed that because right when COVID hit, I had stopped for a little bit doing my live shows.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard when you stop that to get your listeners back up and get them back in the groove of, hey, I'm back live. You can
Yeah.
tune in now. When they're so used to just you doing interviews and dropping interviews every other day. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be consistent. I know that's one big thing. If you're not consistent, they will fall out and forget you and be
Yeah.
like, hey, bye.
Yeah.
Because the way social media is and the way everything is so fast paced, you gotta be
Mm,
consistent with it.
yeah, that's dope. I noticed the same thing too, especially with music podcasts. Like a lot of them are, they're just a dime a dozen. A lot of them, right?
Yeah.
They don't ask anything like that I really want to know. Like I seen that, and so I was really conscious when I started what I'm doing now on YouTube, because I didn't want to just talk about the music. I mean, what else can be talked about? What's your latest single? What you got coming up? What was your inspiration for this song? No, I want to talk about the business, because the business is the most important part. Like this business is 80 to
Exactly.
90%. The business part is 80, 90% of music. It ain't about the
It is.
music. You know what I'm saying? It's not really about you can have a hit song, it can be playing all over, but you still can be working at McDonald's, and you know what I'm saying, and not seeing no profit, no royalties off of it. And that's just one example, but I wanted to talk about things that were informative to the artist. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Like
that's
having a
why.
relationship with DJs.
Yeah, yeah, and like again, you being a DJ, you know what's hot. You know what sounds. You know what's out there. You got your ear to the ground and everything, ear to the street, and you know what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. So
Every
uh,
song is not a club song.
yeah, and I'm sure, and you make y'all DJs, y'all make whatever's out there hot. So I think y'all have the special ability that no one else has to make a record hot. You know what I'm saying? So that's something right there, part of the game that a lot of artists is like, oh well, they don't really know. So
I feel like with DJs, just like I feel like artists are just like how artists might be scared to go up to like a big name artist and say, "Hey, this is me. This is my music." That's
mm-hmm,
the same way artists are scared of DJs, whether you're a big DJ or a local DJ. They just scared to talk to you. They feel like you automatically just gonna turn them away, or they
mm-hmm.
automatically gonna say you have to pay me 5K. Some DJs are like that.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, there's some grimy
play
ones.
music. And then there's some are just like, send me your song, let me listen to it, and I'll spin it. Now, yes, we do want to get paid, but it's not always I want to. If you don't pay me, I'm not gonna play your music. Sometimes it's share my post, support me. If I have a new mixtape that I'm hosting, share that, or just, tip a little something here and there. Like it's all about support too. It's not always about money with some DJs.
Right.
And like I said, if you just talk to a DJ and say, hey, I got a song, most time they're gonna say, hey, send it to me. But a lot of artists are scared. They just automatically assume, oh, you a DJ. I'm scared to talk to you. I'm scared to approach you. But it's not like that.
You know something I learned, and I'll say this one last thing here before I ask you my last question, but I've learned that you gotta just bring value. Like you can't, a lot of people just come up, they want something for nothing, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's what really messes up the business side, in my opinion, because even what I do, when I told you I do the management thing, I do, I'm an artist, and by me having a management thing, I get a lot of people coming up to me asking me for different favors or whatnot without bringing any value. It's just like the business is relationships, right? The business is you wash my hands, I wash your hands.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people get that part of the game messed up. That's just what I see, right?
I agree.
Yeah. But what I wanted to ask you real quick before we got up out of here, what do you see the future of your show going? Like you do a weekly show? I can't remember. Is it a weekly?
I do weekly. I'm back live every Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay.
And I eventually do want to get on FM or XM. But if that's not the case, then sticking with my DJing. Those like my top two right now. And of course my magazine too. So
shout
those like my top three.
Shout your magazine out for real.
U3 Radio Magazine. It promotes not just independent and underground artists. It promotes business owners, everybody, no matter what you do, gaming, beat makers, all that. I will promote you and put you in my magazine.
All right,
I think this year I'm more focused on me than the artist. Like I'm not saying I'm not still focused on my artists. Like I still do my shows and all that, but I'm trying to promote myself more too, because I noticed that throughout the years I was more promoting the show and the artist instead of me being the brand behind the show. So
right.
Promote that more.
Yeah. Well, I see you having a lot of success. Like I said, I specifically wanted to talk. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you because, like I said, you got everything. You got your stuff together. You know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying. You real professional with your vibe, and you got a magazine. You know, you got all DJing. You got the podcast. You know, you just keeping yourself busy. You're pushing the culture forward. You know, so I like to speak to people like that. So, but I want to thank you for joining me. I wanted to thank my audience for joining me as well on the business. Again, Mayzella House, U3 Radio. Y'all need to check her out with Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
Yes.
Every week. So that's what's happening, y'all. Appreciate y'all joining me again. We'll see y'all next week. I'm Jay Herb. I run Charles and Trimble. Thanks for checking out this episode of The Business, our new show every other Wednesday where we dive into the inner workings of the music business, behind the scenes with the music professionals who live it and breathe it every day. Be sure to like and subscribe. And for more content daily, head over to our IG page, Charles and Trimble. Until next time, thanks.